Hi, this is Dr. Cox, and this week I'm going to share the book, The Hermit Crab. There's a couple of things that you need to know before I start the book. One is, what is a hermit crab? A hermit crab is a small crab and about smaller than your hand, smaller than the palm of your hand. Think about the size of a 50-cent piece. And hermit crabs change shells like you change shoes. When you grow and your shoes get too tight, you take your shoes off, you buy another pair that's a little bit bigger, you wear those, your feet grow, they get tight, you get rid of them, and you get another pair of shoes that's a little bit bigger. And that's what a hermit crab does with their shell. It will get tight inside that little shell, and they'll crawl along the bottom of the ocean, and they'll find another shell that's a little bit bigger, and they'll ditch their shell and crawl across and get inside the new shell, and then carry it around for a while. The other thing you need to know is a flounder. Now, a flounder is a ridiculous looking fish. You might want to Google a flounder. They're super flat. They're pretty big. They're about as big as a breakfast table, maybe a little bit bigger, but they look ridiculous. The other thing you need to know about is what this fisherman has right here, and it's a lobster trap. Lobster traps are made out of wood, some of them are, and what they do is they put rotten meat inside there because for some reason lobsters love rotten meat, and then they put that wooden trap out into the ocean and it sinks, and then the crab goes in the opening, and once it gets in the opening, it gets inside there and starts eating that rotten meat. Well, it can't get out. It can't figure out how to get out. So those are the three things you need to know about the hermit crab. The hermit crab in this story didn't set out to be a hero. He wasn't particularly brave. He actually was very shy. And whenever all his neighbors would get together, the hermit crab was happy to linger just out of sight. And if anyone did happen to notice him, he would become terribly nervous and start to fidget. And then if someone should happen to say, "Hi," or "How's it going?" he would disappear deep into his shell without saying a word. Early one morning, just when the hermit crab's neighbors were sitting down to have breakfast, a large wooden contraption fell out of the sky and headed right for them. It bounced and clattered and finally came to rest smack dab in the middle of their town square. The hermit crab was off by himself, poking around in the sand, looking for something good to eat. "What in the world is it?" the starfish asked. "Some sort of new restaurant?" the lobster replied. He was sniffing at the tasty aroma that was coming from inside it. "Stay back," the bluefish warned. "I've seen things like this before. Smells like there's something good to eat inside, but don't be fooled. It's just a trap." "Hey," said the striped bass, "where's the flounder? Has anyone seen the flounder?" Nobody had. Meanwhile, not too far away, the hermit crab had forgotten all about looking for food. He was sitting perfectly still on top of a rock, looking down at the most beautiful shell he had ever seen. Very carefully, the hermit crab crept over to the fancy new shell, saw that it was empty, and decided right then and there to move in. It's even got moving parts, he thought to himself. And he felt very happy. Back in the center of town, no one was happy. "Help!" cried a voice from beneath the contraption. "It's the flounder," the lobster yelled. "He's trapped underneath the restaurant." "It's not a restaurant," said the bluefish. "It's a trap. The flounder needs our help." "Yeah," the crab shouted. "The flounder needs our help." Okay, the lobster said. "Go ahead, but if that thing is some kind of trap, I'm not going near it." And then no one said anything because they all felt the same way. "Wait a minute," the striped bass whispered. "Who is that?" The hermit crab came stumbling out of the seaweed forest right in the center of town. "What is this?" he thought. He didn't notice the flounder, but he did notice the good smells, and that reminded him how hungry he was. He walked around the contraption, grabbing it, giving it a shake. He wanted to get in where the good smell was coming from. Everyone watched the mysterious stranger from their hiding places. "Look," whispered the starfish. "He's trying to rescue the flounder. Who is that?" "Yeah," the crab shouted. "Who is that?" "That," cried the lobster, "that is our brave champion. Our hero has come to save us." And then all of a sudden, the contraption moved. Then it moved again, and finally it began to float back into the sky. The hermit crab was still clinging to its side. He let go at last and gently drifted back down. And settled right on top of the flounder. The flounder, now free, tried to thank the mysterious stranger, but the hermit crab drew himself up into his new shell. Everyone came rushing out of their hiding places, cheering their hero. This excitement was just too much for the poor hermit crab. He curled up even tighter inside his new shell. "Great," he thought. "Now I'll never get anything to eat." The hermit crab's neighbors quickly organized a parade and carried their hero to the highest rock, where they carefully set him down for all to see, and then they celebrated late into the night. The hermit crab remained hidden from view. As soon as it grew quiet, the hermit crab slid out of his fancy new shell. Back through the seaweed forest, until at last he found his worn-out old shell right where he had left it, and he wiggled back inside and soon fell fast asleep. The next day, the hermit crab made his way back to town. There, still perched on top of the highest rock, was the fancy new shell, empty as the day he'd found it. But nobody in the crowd noticed. They were happy to cheer their new hero, while the lobster made speech after speech. So the hermit crab settled in, just beyond the edge of the crowd, right where he was most comfortable, and he smiled to himself. And he even cheered the fancy new shell, but he cheered very softly and just a little bit. He didn't want to be noticed.